Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered Gamer Board Game Reviews and News. Today on the chopping block, a game for the Halloween season. Well, there are a lot of games out there that are kind of spooky and a little daunting when it comes to playing on Halloween weekend, but this one we can for sure say, or at least most of us in the board game community can say, that this game is mostly what you would play when you want to have a little spooky evening with a couple friends. What is that game? Well, it's a game made by Avalon Hill and Wizards of the Coast. What is that game? You're probably pretty familiar with it. The game is called Betrayal at the House on the Hill. This is actually the second edition. There are two editions. They're both pretty much the same. This has a little bit of a different quality. I'll explain that in a little bit. You also might be aware that there is an additional expansion that just came out. What is that? Betrayal at the House on the Hill, Widow's Walk. An expansion that came out about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Really interesting. We're going to go ahead and discuss both of them right now. Alright guys, so this is how the game is set up. If you're going to be playing, it's going to be generally with 3 to 6 players. Right here we have a game of 6 players. You have about 6 different placards with 6 different characters, all having their own name, as well as a front and a back side. Each character has attributes that are speed, might, sanity, and knowledge. Depending on which side of the character board you play on, those characters are going to have different stats that are basically the starting points. There's a little green highlighted area for each number that will indicate which stat is for which character. So for instance, Professor Longfellow here will have a stat of 4 for speed, might is 3, sanity is 3, and knowledge is 5. On this side, it's a difference of speed is 3, might is 2, sanity is 6, and knowledge is 4. So you can go ahead and choose which other side you would like, and all the characters do have a difference in stats. It's just a slight difference. They all have about the same equivalent stats, so choosing a character is going to be preferential to the player based on maybe how the character looks. So setting up a 6-player game, you go ahead and set all the characters up in the entrance hall. Just like so. Now, a player's turn is very simple. It will consist of movement, drawing cards, and fighting. Usually in that order, but it could change. So for instance, if we go ahead and start with perhaps Vivian Lopez, this character here, to start the game, you have to determine how fast your character can move, and that will be based on the speed of the character. Vivian over here has a speed of 4, which means she has a movement speed of 4, so she can go ahead and move 4 spaces. Now here we have the entrance hall, which there's 3 different locations. Each space is a location, and you can travel to certain areas of the house, whether it be the basement, upper landing, or the roof landing, which is in the expansion, and you can move the character and then go ahead and move to a certain spot based on what it says. The grand staircase will allow you to move to the upper landing. So with a speed of 4, she has moved 1, 2, 3, and on her 4th space, she kind of moves off into the middle of nowhere. Well, how do you do that? Simple. You choose a tile. Now, there's 2 stacks here, but generally in the game, you're going to have a huge stack, and you just go ahead and select the tile that will allow you to place based on where the character is at. And it's fairly simple to determine that. For instance, in the ground area, if you were to move here, you would be able to use this ground one. But unfortunately, we're in the upper landing, so we have to move this one down. Here's another ground. Oh, there's an upper. So this says upper and basement. This means this tile is used for upper or basement landing, depending on where you're going. For this specific example, we're going to be going in the upper landing, so we'll go ahead and turn the card over, and then we're going to have a look-see at the doors in this location. Well, the doors here are simple. They're placed right here and right here. So you'll take this, and you will place it right next to the upper landing, and then you'll place your character inside. Now, generally, you could keep moving, provided there is no icon on the actual tile. So, for instance, this one here has a little symbol of an omen, which means the character must stop, draw an omen card, and do what it says, and their turn is over. So, she or he will take a card here, will read what it says. This one says letter, scrawled in ink, or whatever. Hand one of your explorer tokens to another explorer. On your turn, you may move to that explorer's room, then discard this omen and explore. And the explorer discards your explorer token. Okay, so that's what this does. After you're finished with that, specifically for omens, you'll take up to 6 die, or you will take 6 die, and you will roll them. If the chits, oh my goodness, are equal to or less than the amount of omens in play, then the haunt would start. And this is a terrible roll, so we won't use this as an example, really. But if I were to have rolled this for that one omen, it would match or be less than, and the haunt would start. But we'll go ahead and just pretend like I did this, just for the sake of continuing the example. There we go. So, luckily, we didn't have the haunt play out, so the next player would go. Zoe would move, and she has a movement of 4 as well, so she'll go 1, she'll go 2. This is the ground floor. Here's a ground tile, and you'll place it here. Great, the library. You'll connect the doors to each other, And you'll go ahead and say, okay, here's the library. The library has a little spirally thing, which is an event. You'll take the event, you'll read it. Smoke, smoke billowing around you. You cough, wiping away tears. Put the smoke token in the room. Now, there's tons and tons of tokens in this game. Hundreds of them. You'll have to go through and look for the smoke token, or if you're smart and unlike me and actually have everything situated, you'll take the token, you'll place it in the room, and for every die roll, an explorer rolls 2 fewer die on all trait rolls in this room. So that's what this one does. And you can go ahead and set this next to the library or use the smoke token. It's up to it's your leisure. And then your turn will be over. So every time you draw a card, it ends. However, if there wasn't a little symbol here, then your turn would continue. The last thing you do is go ahead and look at the little text at the bottom here. This one specifically says, if you end your turn, here you gain a knowledge. Now you can only do this once for each location in the house, so you'll go ahead and gain your knowledge by taking your character sheet here and moving your little knowledge ticker up 1, so you'll go from 3 to 4. Afterwards, you'll take a little character token, which are in here, which come in the expansion, luckily. I wish they would have came in the base game, and you'll place your little token here, representing the fact that you've been here and can no longer do that. And you'll continue to play the game, making the house bigger. You could go to the basement, you could go to the roof, there's tons of different locations. And in the expansion, there's a thing called the dumbwaiter, which will allow you to move throughout the house a little more easily, because there's going to be a lot more rooms. The expansion comes with many extra tiles, which is why there's so many here. It comes with a couple extra tokens, a couple extra events, items, and omens. Items are simply things you can get by completing tasks, rolling die, getting lucky, and you can get stuff that are cool. A device. At the end of your turn, if you're in the same room as an opponent, you gain 1 knowledge. So that's pretty cool. So that's kind of how the game goes. As you continually gain omen cards, you'll continually roll these 6 die, and eventually, when you roll less numbers, less little pips than the amount of omens in play, that's when the haunt will begin. That's where all of these rule books come into play. You'll go ahead and look at the main rulebook and determine where the haunt is going to take you. So there's 50 different haunts in the base game and 50 additional haunts in the expansion. You'll go ahead and see which character is going to turn traitor and which haunt you're going to be doing. Now there's tons and tons of stories, like I said. You could be playing chess with the devil, or you could be the blob. You could be a bunch of bugs. One player character is generally going to be a traitor in this game, and their objective is like a 1 versus many scenario where you have to actually battle out against your other opponents. Sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes, especially in the expansion, there's a couple extra unique scenarios involving everybody against the game or everybody out for each other, that kind of stuff, which is pretty amazing. I like the addition to that. So you'll look at these. You look at the last omen you drew, you look at the location of the room you were in, determine who is the traitor, and then each party, the good guys and the bad traitor, will go to separate areas of the house, read the rule book, learn what it says, and the traitor will have obviously his own book depending on which story you get, and it'll tell you what you know right now, what you know about the heroes, what happens when you win, what you do on your turn, and all your special talents and tricks and tips and all that good stuff you learn about. All your little tokens you get. You might be a blob and get a bunch of blob tokens, and they have different things. So that's really interesting. The last thing you gotta know is that you can fight. You can generally fight on your turn before or after moving. And fighting is very simple. When you do any kind of roll in this game, you take your stat, which might be, maybe you're fighting with might, you'll take your stat, which is 3, and you roll your 3 die. And then your opponent will also have to use their might. So he got a 2. Maybe your opponent has 4. So he'll roll. And your opponent will win that fight. And generally speaking, the amount you win by is the amount of damage you do. Sometimes for the creatures, you just instantly kill them or you'll stun them depending on the scenario. So that's kind of how that works. And the game will play out in that sense. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. There's tons of amazing scenarios in this game, different things. Now, while I do have some concerns with this game, and it's not a perfect game in general, this game is fairly fun, and I'll go ahead and give you my finished idea of how the game, I'll give you my final review in just a second here. But this is basically how you play Betrayal at the House on the Hill with the expansion Widow's Walk. Alright guys, so that's basically how you play Betrayal at the House on the Hill with the Widow's Walk expansion. The game's pretty simple, tile placement game, moving around the house, playing cooperatively until the omens burst out, somebody screws up on a roll, and the haunt begins. Somebody turns into a traitor, and then you got to play one of the 100 stories in the game. A lot of the stories are very thematic, and they work pretty well. Now, of course, there are some critiques I have about this game. The first thing is simply the style of the little moving pieces of plastic on the cardboard. It does kind of wear on the game as you play it, which is to be expected. I wish there was a better way that they did that, but all in all, it's not too bad. I heard the original game version of the game, which I think had a green cover. I think this is the second edition. Had an issue with the tiles warping, especially when they got wet. I've never had that issue with mine, so I can't complain, and I don't know how prevalent it is with the game itself. The expansion, however, the tiles are beautiful. They work fine. I don't have any issues with any of the tiles. The game stories are very thematic and creative. There's tons and tons of different people who made these stories. So the first thing I did when I got the expansion was read through a couple of the stories, just because I really enjoyed how thematic it is. And I know I'm probably not going to get to play every single one of these stories. That being said, there are some stories that are very poorly done, unfortunately. They're very short, they're not very thematic, and on the occasion, the game is almost unplayable with some of the scenarios. Realistically, you're going to have somebody that's a traitor and they're going to read their rulebook and go, I have no idea what's going on, but unfortunately they can't ask anybody else questions, so they're sitting there looking through the base rules of the game, wondering what they need to do or what this means or what that means, because sometimes there's rules in the booklet that don't make sense, they don't pertain to the actual rules of the game, which can be kind of confusing for newer players. But if you're a pretty seasoned veteran of this game, you can kind of make out a rough idea of how the game's supposed to be played. So that is definitely an issue with some of the scenarios. But because there's 100 stories plus an additional story, a special story you get in the expansion, I can't really fault it that much. The game itself is pretty good and definitely a game you want to pick up for the holiday season. Betrayal at the House on the Hill with the Widow's Walk expansion are excellent games. I suggest you get them if you haven't already. That being said, thank you for checking out Unfiltered Gamer's board game review this week. And I'd like you to go ahead and direct yourself to unfilteredgamer.com/giveaways-events. We got tons of giveaways going on with tons of great companies. One being everythingboardgames.com and thegiveawaygeek.com. They give away tons and tons of board games along with myself. Post great blog reviews, blog posts, comments, that kind of stuff. And I really support them because I think they do a great job. And I hope you guys do as well. Last thing to note, like I said, we've got a bunch of giveaways going on. This month's giveaways is Machi Koro with the expansion Millionaire's Row. Really bad art, as well as Robot Turtles. It's a great plethora of games for the family. You have Robot Turtles, which is for the little kids, all the way up to Machi Koro, which is a game for anybody. Please go ahead and check it out. Subscribe to my channel. I appreciate everything you guys have done so far, and I'm very happy, very pleased to announce that I've got my 100 Twitter followers, and I'm really close to 100 YouTube subscribers. Thanks again, guys, and I hope to see you guys in another board gaming review. If you guys have a specific game you'd like me to review for you, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. I'll talk to you guys really soon. You have a great Halloween.